We think that we can own nature. We think that we can enslave nature. I mentioned that we're part of the world. The solution, this huge change that we have to go through right now, depends on, yes, we have to change our behavior, but we're really dependent on much of the rest of the world. For example, if you do the math about the rise, the carbon flux, simply cutting deforestation in the tropical areas would save about a third of that. You know, most of the time when people do the carbon budget with forests, they take what it saves and then they add what being chopped and they say, well, it's about a 10% effect. No. If you ignore the fact that we're deforesting and just see what the activities are, the ability of the biota to sequester carbon in these areas, just the tropics I'm talking about, it's pushing 30%. It's a crazy number. And guess what? For a tiny amount of money, relatively speaking, we could stop cutting in the tropical areas overnight. There's no technology required. It's just called writing a big enough check and providing other economic alternatives to folks so they stop cutting down the trees. It's really very simple. You don't have to invent an electric car. You don't have to come up with a new grid. You don't have anything super technology. We had the willingness, we could do this now. So, what's the problem with the press? I'll go back to the slavery example for a moment. So how much did the mainstream press cover the evils, both the economic evil of slavery, which is really pretty considerable, considering how it distorted the ability to be productive in the modern industrial age. Slave labor really doesn't work very well. So-called free labor, and I suspect folks who worked in the mills in Lawrence and Lowell might not have felt like they were particularly free, but, you know, legally they were. They got to go home at night. So-called free labor is much more economically efficient than a slave labor system. So, and then of course there's the morality about it. So we've enslaved nature, which is economically really inefficient for us. We consider the costs of what we're doing. And then of course there's the whole moral thing. Is it even possible for us to destroy the very basis of having not only our civilization, but also space for many of the other species on the planet? As I recall, there's not much in the mainstream press that dealt with this. There were some papers, you know, Horace Greeley famously, Tribune was on this. In this town we had William Lloyd Garrison, and the Liberator, we had Frederick Douglass's paper, but they were over here from the mainstream. The mainstream did not really want to get its head there. So why does the press not want to do this? Because that's the way we have fashioned our society to work today. The press is there to make money, to get the ratings, and you know what? The way we're working, covering this, the way that it really needs to be done, doesn't mesh. So, what's the solution? Well, we got out of the slave bind in a horrible, messy, disastrous way, and yet somehow we triumphed. Somehow we have an America today that is vital, that has a democracy, that has free labor. So we can do it again. The question is, how much pain do we want to endure? And beyond pain, how much suffering do we want to endure?